Good evening, and I think I have the privilege this afternoon to welcome all of you to the campus of Northeast and to the 2014 Humanities Lecture. Whether you're a student, former faculty member, current faculty members, or just lovers of the humanities. Did you hear what I said? I don't sound right. And I'm tough enough to take it. Now you can hear me in all my amplified glory. Thank you for being here tonight. About 20 years ago, the Mississippi Humanities Council began to sponsor humanities teachers recognitions in colleges and universities all over the state. And for all of those 20 years, Northeast has participated, and annually we select one of our instructors who has training, experience, and responsibilities in the humanities to recognize as the Humanities Teacher of the Year. Tonight we are showcasing that talent. It is a joint production of the Mississippi Humanities Council, the Cultural Arts Committee here at the college, and Northeast Community College in general. I think you're in for a wonderful evening. As a result of your presence here tonight and this presentation, we hope a couple of things happen for all of you. First of all, we hope you just enjoy the presentation. I think you will. But we hope you learn more about the humanities and learn to love the humanities at even a higher level. So regardless of your role here tonight, we hope you'll sit back, relax, enjoy the evening, enjoy the scholarly discussion, and participate as the Spirit moves you. While you're here, we hope you're very comfortable. If there are things that I can say or do to make your evening more comfortable or more pleasurable, hope you'll call on me. But thank you for being here. But I think in the end, you're going to thank us for the privilege of hosting this event. And so now I'm going to call on the division head of the Humanities Division, and I'm not sure of the Language Division, Miss Janice Patterson. Would you welcome her to the stage for an introduction? Janice, come forward. And bring our resident scholar with you, please.
Thank you, Dr. Allen. And to Dr. Allen, if we have any board members here, faculty members, students, and friends, it is my honor to introduce my esteemed colleague tonight, with whom I have worked for almost 10 years. She attended Northeast and then the University of North Alabama, where she received a Bachelor of Arts and dual degrees in both English and French education. She received a Master of Arts in English from Mississippi State University. Prior to coming to Northeast as an English instructor, she taught English as well as French in various schools in Alcorn and Tishomingo counties. She taught middle school in Burnsville, middle school and high school in Biggersville, Alcorn Central, and Kossuth. She currently teaches English Composition 1 and 2 and British Literature. What I found fascinating is something that what she told me. The highlight of her career is not just that she is co-chair of the Cultural Arts Committee, or that she's a 2012 Lamplighter of Mississippi recipient, or even she's a member of the Academic Discipline Committee, or perhaps the fact that she's receiving this award tonight. But the highlight is that over the years, several of her students from middle school to college have entered state writing competitions, such as the Mississippi Poetry Society Students Writing and the Mississippi Community College Creative Writing Association. And those students have placed highly, winning sometimes first and second places. She states, and I quote, "That I feel is one of the highlights of my career. Just seeing my students use their talents and succeed, and thinking that maybe I encourage them and help them just a little bit along the way." And I can certainly attest to her dedication and love for her students. Because we had neighboring offices for several years, I witnessed individual conferences with her students, sometimes starting as early as 8 o'clock in the morning and ending as late as 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And what I found really interesting is that she exercised the same patience for each one of her students, reading their papers to them so that they could hear their own writing and then making constructive criticisms. Lynn lives in Iuka with her husband Brandon, and Brandon, if you don't mind, just acknowledge their 5-year-old son Corey. Corey, you like to stand? He's a kindergarten student at Iuka Elementary School. And her parents, Dr. Emery and Mrs. Glenda Jones, retired Northeast instructors who served Northeast for almost 30 years. Dr. Jones taught English, Mrs. Jones taught music, but what's also interesting, Dr. Jones is also a recipient of the 1999 Teacher of the Year Award. Ladies and gentlemen, I now present to you Mrs. Lynn Jones Burns.
Thank you all so much for coming tonight. Thank you, Dr. Allen and Ms. Patterson, for your kind words. It is a great honor to receive such a prestigious award. I'm deeply humbled by the thought that now I'm going to have to live up to it. But I do love what I do, and every day I strive to find new ways to make composition and literature more interesting and alive and meaningful for my students, and to be the best example I can be for them of how to live, work, and get along in the world. That brings me to my inspiration for this speech, love. Igor Stravinsky, the Russian composer, once stated, "It takes a dynamic force to create, and what force is more potent than love?" This quote hangs on a crowded bulletin board above my desk in Anderson 212, and is something I think about often. It was the dynamic and potent force of my parents' love that started me on the road to where I am today. As has been mentioned, both of my parents, Dr. Emery Jones and Mrs. Glenda Jones, were humanities teachers. Daddy taught composition, British and American literature, and creative writing here at Northeast for over 30 years, and has been active in the Mississippi Poetry Society, writing and publishing poetry for just as long. He is also the founder of the Mississippi Community College Creative Writing Association, whose annual competition Northeast students still enter and place highly in each year. Daddy was awarded, as Ms. Patterson pointed out, the Humanities Teacher of the Year Award in 1999. Mother taught music appreciation, music theory, and individual and class piano for 30 years, and has been actively involved in the music ministry of Iuka Baptist Church for even longer. My sister, Tara Castile, a music teacher, and I grew up in a home surrounded not only by family love, but also a love of books, music, and art. We were read to regularly and taken to plays, art exhibits, and musical productions. And our creativity was encouraged, as was our scholarship. We both followed in our parents' footsteps in the humanities, with me even inheriting my father's office when he retired and I came to work here 8 years ago. Because of my own love for my discipline and the humanities in general, I seek to encourage my students to embrace and find delight in all of the humanities, but in particular in writing and literature. As Daddy told us in his English literature class, literature teaches us what it's like to be human in this universe. And so with that in mind, I ask, what emotion is more human than love? Great authors through the ages have been inspired and motivated by love, and the search for love create their works. Even in the dark, pagan world of the Anglo-Saxons, when the Christian monks began writing down the poems, which for years had been passed down from tribal poet to tribal poet by word of mouth, they were inspired by their own love of God and love and concern for the souls of the people to insert such passages as this one, found at the end of a work entitled The Seafarer. Fate is stronger. God is greater than the grasp of a man. Of the home we have, heedful let us be, and care let us give how we come thither. And try we must too to make our way to the everlasting, endless bliss of heaven. In the love of the Lord, life. There is set hope in the heavens. To the Holy One be thanks that he lifted us up, the Lord of hosts. The world without end, everlasting God. Amen. These lines are obviously not part of the original poem, in which a sailor laments his destiny. In Anglo-Saxon belief, destiny, or fate, was determined by the goddess Beard, whom people strove daily not to offend, because she could strike them easily, and early listeners would most definitely have known that. Well, here, as in earlier passages from this poem, the Christian monks conveniently replaced that concept with the concept that God, lovingly, not randomly or vindictively, chooses men's destinies and uses them to bring about man's ultimate salvation. When my students find the contrast between the dark pagan vision of the original Anglo-Saxon composition and the joyful Christian vision added by the monks confusing, we are then able to address why such passages were added, and it comes back to love. The monks loved God and could only take so much paganism before they had to insert something about him into a piece. In the Middle Ages, authors turned to a different kind of love, romantic love, for inspiration. Especially popular were stories of courtly love, a plot convention in which a knight pursues an unattainable woman and seeks to win her love through prowess at arms or courtesy. In the masterpiece, Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, the anonymous author turns this concept on its head by having the unattainable woman pursue Sir Gawain. Her declarations of love pose a test to his loyalty to her husband, his host at a castle where he rests before meeting the Green Knight at a beheading challenge. Gawain has agreed to trade what he wins each day at the castle with the Lord in exchange for the game the Lord wins on his daily hunts. Because he is the model knight, Sir Gawain passes the test and refuses the freely offered love of this married woman by relying on his Christian faith, his love for God, for strength, and each day keeps his bargain with his host. Finally, when the lady tempts him to take a magic sash that may help save his life in his upcoming beheading contest, Sir Gawain gives in and keeps her love token. He sustains a small injury from the Green Knight, but is not killed. In his explanation for this, the Green Knight excuses Sir Gawain's disloyalty by telling him that the woman who tempted him was his wife, and that the sash was his sash. He was supposed to return the token, but kept it, not because of greed or love for the married woman, but out of love for his own life, which, of course, for one of such pure character, is excusable. This story always makes for exciting discussions in class because it brings up many interesting points about love and loyalty. Ultimately, the students see how Gawain's love for God and loyalty to his hosting his king and his place he took the beheading challenge make him truly admirable. And they agree that his own love for his own life is definitely not something he should feel guilty about. Shakespeare, known for his insight into human nature, explores many various forms of love and the pursuit of love in his works as well. The ever-popular Romeo and Juliet, the story of a pair of star-crossed lovers, has been the direct and indirect inspiration for numerous other plays and movies, songs and poems and stories, and has set untold numbers of young girls dreaming of finding their Romeo who would give up everything for their love. A different side of love is explored in the dark tragedy King Lear. When the senile old king decides to retire and declares in Act 1, Scene 1, "Tell me, my daughters, now, since we will divest us both of rule, interest of territory, cares of state, which of you shall we say doth love us most, that we our largest bounty may extend, for nature doth with merit challenge?" Of course, what follows shows clearly that the love the two eldest daughters, Goneril and Regan, declare in flowery speeches is false. While the unvarnished filial love of the youngest daughter, Cordelia, who declares that she loves her father according to my bond, no more and no less, is true, even though her speech fails to please Lear and leads to her banishment. Questions of what true love is, how it is shown, what duties children owe parents and parents owe children, are always interesting to discuss when reading and studying King Lear. And students can hardly imagine people as vile as Goneril and Regan and their shared lover Edmund, whose own selfish actions lead to the death of his father Gloucester, Goneril, Regan, Cordelia, and Lear. Ironically, when Edmund learns that Goneril has poisoned Regan, her rival in his affections, and then killed herself when her husband uncovers her affair, in the throes of death himself exclaims, "Yet Edmund was beloved." This realization brings about an epiphany for how evil he has been, and, as he says, acting against his own nature. Edmund's last act is an attempt to save Cordelia from being murdered on his orders. He is too late. Ultimately, in these evil characters, love of their own lives, which could be excused in one as pure as Sir Gawain, can never be excused, because it comes out not only in disloyalty to everyone except themselves, but also in cruelty, and ultimately in violence, which leads to a kingdom in chaos. While love goes all wrong in some of the most popular of Shakespeare's plays, one of my favorite stories to teach is that of a love gone mostly right. I always begin this story by asking my students how many of them have ever read the Nicholas Sparks novel, A Walk to Remember, or at least seen the movie version. Most of them have. Then I tell them that that young couple's love story can't hold a candle to the true life love story of Elizabeth and Robert Browning, two Victorian poets. Elizabeth was 6 years older than Robert, and having enjoyed an unusually good education from her brother's tutor, had begun her writing career at the tender age of 13. She wrote popular poems that passionately addressed the social evils of the day, such as child labor and slavery. Unfortunately, Elizabeth wrote these poems from the confines of her room in her father's home because she was an invalid. Her father was very overprotective of all 11 of his children and had forbidden any of them to ever marry. But he was especially concerned about Elizabeth because of her ill health. Despite her ailments and limitations, Elizabeth continued to write and also to correspond and even visit with some other writers and her fans, one of whom happened to be a handsome young man named Robert Browning. Robert grew up in a middle-class home with a large library, as Elizabeth had. He was happy at home and lived there until he was 34. Robert was a big fan of Elizabeth's writing and wrote her a letter in which he declared, "I do, as I say, love these books with all my heart, and I love you too." From this letter grew a relationship which Elizabeth recorded in her popular book, Sonnets from the Portuguese, which she presented as a book of translated Portuguese verses, hence the title. Elizabeth doubted Robert's love at first, not only because of the shocking way it was declared, but mostly because, as she declares in lines 5 through 10 of Sonnet 32, "Quick loving hearts, I thought, may quickly love, and looking on myself, I see not one for such a man's love. More like an out-of-tune, worn viol, a good singer would be wroth to spoil his song with, and which, snatched in haste, is laid down at the first ill-sounding note." However, Robert patiently and lovingly pursued Elizabeth. Finally, in 1846, he convinced her to secretly marry him and elope to Italy. She was 39 years old and an invalid. Even though her father never forgave her for going against his wishes and marrying, things turned out very well for Elizabeth. In the warm, sunny climate of Florence, her health improved. Elizabeth and Robert had a son, Robert Barrett Browning, nicknamed Penn, and spent 15 happy years together. Elizabeth died in 1861, and there is no record of Robert ever remarrying. The real-life relationship of Robert and Elizabeth Browning is inspirational. Perhaps for Nicholas Sparks, perhaps not. But for many real-life couples who face life's difficulties with the dedicated love and endurance that Elizabeth describes in one of my favorite sonnets, Sonnet 22. When our two souls stand up, erect and strong, face to face, drawing nigh and nigher, until lengthening wings break into fire at either curved point. What bitter wrong can the earth do to us, that we should not long be here contented? Think, in mounting higher, the angels would press on us and aspire to drop some golden orb of perfect song into our deep, dear silence. Let us stay, rather, on earth, beloved, where the unfit, contrarious moods of men recoil away and isolate pure spirits, and permit a place to stand and love in for a day, the darkness and the death hour rounding it. With all the many aspects of love that inspire and infuse literary works, and even true stories like the ones I've just discussed, and indeed all of the humanities, how can we not be motivated to love them, and ultimately to love the subject of all these disciplines, humanity itself? After all, what in the world is more human than to give and receive love? Thank you.
Hello, I'm Carla Faulkner, and most of you know me as the Division Chair of the Social, Behavioral, and Applied Sciences. But tonight I'm here in a different role. I'm here representing the Mississippi Humanities Council. And the Council is very pleased to honor Mrs. Burns for her outstanding teaching and scholarship here at Northeast Mississippi Community College. As Dr. Allen pointed out, every year as part of National Arts and Humanities Month, we recognize a Humanities Teacher Award winner at each of the state's colleges and universities. As part of this award, each winner is asked to present a lecture on a humanities-related subject and will receive a cash award and be asked to attend our Humanities Banquet on February 13th in Jackson, where the winners will be publicly recognized for their achievement. We at the Humanities Council believe that it is important to recognize the excellence of humanities teachers while encouraging their work as scholars. The purpose of this lecture and the other presentations taking place in 30 colleges and universities across the state this month is to bring the insight of humanities scholars to the larger public. The idea of enabling and encouraging humanities scholars to reach beyond academia and to bring their work to the community has always been central to the mission of the Mississippi Humanities Council, where we believe that the humanities are for everyone. And just kind of as a point of how much we have done this through the years, I would like all the former winners of the Northeast Mississippi Humanities Council Humanities Teachers of the Year to please stand. Is an independent nonprofit organization supported primarily by the National Endowment of the Humanities, but also by grants and donations from private foundations and corporations and individuals. The council, and then, in turn, uses that money to create a wide range of public humanities programs across the state. We encourage you to access us on Facebook or at our website, MississippiHumanities.org, and to become a part of the humanities. It is now my pleasure to give this award to Mrs. Lynn Burns. I would like to invite each of you to the reception out in the foyer of Anderson Hall. Thank you for coming.